The steady hum of fluorescent lights filled the quiet martial arts studio as students warmed up on the padded floor. Kicks and punches landed on heavy bags in rhythmic thuds, while soft grunts echoed in the air. At the front, Master Cole Evans, a tall man with a crisp black belt tied neatly around his waist, paced with the confidence of someone used to being the center of attention. Today wasn't just another training session. The mood was lighter, almost playful, though the smirk on Cole's face hinted at something more. By the mop bucket in the corner, a man in gray coveralls pushed his broom methodically across the mat. His name was Leonard Price, middle-aged, quiet, and always keeping to himself. He was the studio's janitor, the guy who came in every evening to clean after classes. He never joined in on conversations and rarely looked anyone in the eye. Cole's voice broke the low murmur of the room. "Hey, Leonard," he called out, the amusement in his tone hard to miss. "How about you step away from that broom for a bit? We could use a volunteer for a little demonstration." Several students paused mid-stretch, eyes darting toward the janitor. Leonard stopped sweeping, leaned on the handle of the broom, and looked up slowly. "I'm just here to work, sir," he replied, his voice even but quiet. Cole's grin widened. "Come on, it's just for fun. You watch us train every night, so let's see what you've got. We'll keep it light, no one's getting hurt." Leonard hesitated, his gaze swept the room, taking in the curious faces. A couple of younger students snickered under their breath. "I'd rather not," Leonard said. Cole laughed, turning to his class as if Leonard's refusal was part of the act. "You all hear that? Man's afraid to step onto the mat. Can't even show us a basic stance." The remark drew a few chuckles. Leonard's jaw tightened. He set the broom aside, stepped forward, and stood on the edge of the training area. "All right," he said finally, his voice calm but carrying a weight that quieted the giggles. "If it's just for fun." The students formed a loose circle, sensing this was about to turn into the day's main event. Cole gestured for Leonard to come closer. "We'll start simple," he said. "Show me your guard." Leonard lifted his hands slowly, settling into a stance that seemed unremarkable to the untrained eye, but one or two older students frowned slightly, recognizing something precise in the way he positioned his feet. Cole bounced lightly on his toes. "All right, let's move." He stepped in with a probing jab. Leonard swayed just enough for the punch to miss, then reset without a word. It went on like that for a minute, Cole testing, Leonard deflecting or slipping away without countering. The room was quiet except for the shuffle of feet and the squeak of the mats. Then Cole threw a sharper combination. A jab followed by a quick low kick. Leonard pivoted, his heel barely grazing the mat, and the kick met nothing but air. Cole blinked, slightly thrown off, before regaining his smirk. "Not bad for a janitor," he said. From the back of the group, a young woman named Emily spoke up. "Master Evans, maybe this isn't such a good idea." Cole waved her off. "Relax, Emily, I know what I'm doing." But Leonard's expression had changed. He was no longer just going through the motions. There was a focus in his eyes now, the kind that comes from muscle memory honed over years. "You want me to play along," Leonard said quietly, "but you've been trying to make me look foolish from the start." Cole's brow furrowed. "It's a lesson. Confidence matters. You can't take things so seriously." Leonard didn't reply. Instead, he settled deeper into his stance. Attention rippled through the circle of students. Cole came in again, this time with more force, a left hook aimed high. Leonard dipped under it, stepped in close, and with a gentle push to Cole's shoulder, redirected him off balance. Cole stumbled but caught himself before falling. A murmur ran through the group. Cole straightened, his jaw tightening. "All right, let's really go." Then, Leonard's voice was still calm. "Your call." They squared off again. This time, Cole feinted a low kick before snapping a side kick toward Leonard's ribs. Without flinching, Leonard slid back just far enough to let the kick miss by an inch. Then stepped in, lightly tapping Cole's sternum with 2 fingers. The gesture wasn't forceful, but the precision was unmistakable. "You lean too much into your strikes," Leonard said softly. "It leaves you open." The studio was silent now. Even the air felt heavier. Cole's pride flared. "Let's see how open you are," he said, launching a rapid series of punches. Leonard blocked, slipped, and sidestepped each one as though he'd seen them all before. Finally, Leonard stepped in, caught Cole's wrist, and with the smallest twist, immobilized him without causing pain. Cole froze, his breath quickening. Leonard let go and stepped back. "You wanted a demonstration," he said. "Consider it done." The students exchanged stunned glances. Cole didn't speak for a long moment, then forced a smile. "Not bad," he said, though his tone was strained. Leonard gave a small nod, picked up his broom, and returned to his corner. The rest of class went on, but the energy in the room had shifted. The students kept stealing glances at the quiet janitor, now seeing him in an entirely different light. What they didn't know, what none of them could guess, was that Leonard Price wasn't just some man who cleaned floors. That revelation would come soon enough. The next day, word of what happened between Cole Evans and Leonard Price spread through the martial arts studio like wildfire. By the time the evening classes began, the place buzzed with hushed conversations and curious glances toward the man in gray coveralls. Leonard, as always, moved quietly from one corner of the room to another, sweeping up stray tape from the mats, emptying the trash, and refilling the mop bucket. He gave no sign that anything unusual had happened the night before. But the students saw him differently now. "Hey, Leonard," one of the teens called out. "Where'd you learn to move like that?" Leonard looked up briefly from where he was coiling an extension cord. "Just picked up a thing or two over the years," he said, then went back to his work. It might have ended there, but Cole wasn't about to let his authority be undermined. Standing at the front of the room, he clapped his hands sharply. "All right, everyone, let's get started. Tonight, we're going to work on countering aggressive rushes. Partner up." Pairs formed quickly. Emily, the young woman who had tried to intervene the night before, ended up without a partner. Cole scanned the room and, almost too quickly, his eyes landed on Leonard. "You, Price, since you apparently have some moves, why don't you help me demonstrate?" Leonard straightened slowly, wiping his hands on his coveralls. "I'm on the clock," he said, "then consider this a quick break." Cole replied, his smile edged with challenge. "We'll keep it light, remember?" The circle formed again, students eager to watch. Leonard stepped onto the mat, rolling his shoulders as if limbering muscles that hadn't been tested in years. "This drill," Cole explained, "is about stopping an opponent who charges in recklessly. You have to meet their momentum with control." He took his stance. "Ready?" Leonard nodded once. Cole lunged forward suddenly, aiming to wrap Leonard up in a clinch. But Leonard shifted just enough to let the momentum pass him, his hand lightly redirecting Cole's head to the side. In the same movement, he hooked Cole's leg and guided him down to the mat in a surprisingly gentle sweep. Cole hit the floor with a solid thump, blinking up at the ceiling. "Like that?" Leonard asked, his tone neutral. The students erupted into murmurs. Cole got to his feet quickly, brushing himself off. "Lucky move," he muttered. This time, he attacked with a flurry, hands darting high, low, then high again. Leonard moved in a way that made the strikes seem slow, parrying with minimal effort. On the last punch, Leonard stepped inside, tapped Cole's shoulder with his palm, and stopped. "Your left drops when you punch," Leonard said. "You give away your next move." Cole's jaw clenched. "All right," he said, "enough playing around." From the sidelines, Emily crossed her arms. "It doesn't look like he's the one playing," she said under her breath. Cole launched again, faster and harder, but the result was the same. Leonard read every strike, every feint. Then, in one smooth motion, Leonard stepped in, spun behind Cole, and caught him in a harmless but undeniable hold, immobilizing him completely. Gasps rippled through the room. Leonard released him at once. "You've got skill," he said quietly, "but your ego's getting in the way of your technique." For a moment, the only sound was the hum of the lights above. Cole forced a laugh, but it sounded hollow. "Looks like you've done some training before." Leonard gave a small shrug. "A little." He picked up his broom and stepped back to the edge of the mat. After class, a few students gathered around Leonard, peppering him with questions. He answered most with vague smiles and short responses, never giving away much. Emily lingered until the others drifted off. "You weren't just trained, were you?" she asked. Leonard glanced at her, then back at the mop in his hands. A long time ago, I did some fighting, but that's not who I am anymore. Why not? She asked. Leonard paused, his eyes distant, because sometimes walking away from the ring is harder than staying in it. Before Emily could ask more, Cole called her over to help clean up the gear. That night, Leonard finished his work in silence. But memories he'd kept buried for years stirred in the back of his mind, bright lights. The roar of a crowd, and the taste of blood in his mouth after a hard fight. He thought he'd left that life behind, but it seemed trouble had a way of finding him, even here, and the more Cole Evans pushed, the closer Leonard was getting to revealing the truth about who he really was. 2 weeks passed, and the tension in the studio had only thickened. Cole Evans had stopped making direct digs at Leonard Price. But the undercurrent was still there, a tightness in his voice when he addressed Leonard. A flicker of annoyance when the students glanced toward the janitor for unspoken approval. Leonard kept to his routine. Sweep, mop, disinfect the pads, lock up the storage closet. But he noticed the change in the atmosphere. A few students had started arriving early, hoping to catch him alone to ask questions about footwork or defensive tactics. He always gave them small, practical tips, never a full lesson. Still, word spread fast. Leonard Price wasn't just some guy who pushed a broom. It was a Wednesday evening when trouble walked through the front door. A tall, broad-shouldered man in a worn leather jacket stepped inside, scanning the place like he was casing it. A long scar traced the side of his face, disappearing into his beard. He smirked when his eyes found Leonard. Well, he said, voice low but carrying. If it isn't Leonard, Stonefist, Price. The room froze. Even Cole looked up sharply. Stonefist? He echoed. Leonard didn't look up from the mop bucket. You've got the wrong guy. The man chuckled. No, I don't. We fought back in Chicago. Remember? Before you disappeared after, what was it? The Martinez fight? A murmur rolled through the students. Cole's brows knitted. You were a fighter? Like, professionally? Leonard's jaw tightened. That was a lifetime ago. The stranger stepped closer. Then let's make tonight a reunion. 1 round. For old time's sake. I'm not interested, Leonard said flatly. Cole's eyes lit up, not with respect, but with opportunity. Actually, he said, that might be a great idea. The students could learn a lot from seeing 2 seasoned fighters go at it. Emily stepped forward. Or it could just be another ego contest you want to host. Cole ignored her. Come on, Price. Prove you're not just hiding behind a mop handle. The man in the leather jacket, Trevor Kane, was grinning now. I'll make it worth your while. Winner gets 1,000 cash. He pulled a roll of bills from his pocket and tossed it onto the mat. The student's eyes widened. Cole stepped back with a mock innocent shrug. Up to you, Leonard. For a moment, Leonard said nothing. His gaze drifted to the bills. Then to Trevor. Then to the young students watching him with wide eyes. You want to fight, Leonard said finally. But not here. Not in front of them. Trevor's grin didn't fade. Fine. After hours. Back lot. The tension was electric for the rest of the class. Every kick, every punch seemed to land with extra force. Leonard went about his work like nothing had changed. But Emily noticed the subtle signs, his posture a little straighter, his movements a touch sharper. When the final students left and Cole locked the front door, Leonard hung back, leaning on his mop handle. You sure you want to do this? Emily asked quietly. Leonard gave her a faint smile. Sometimes, to end something, you have to face it head on. They stepped out into the cool night air. Trevor was already waiting in the shadowed back lot, the roll of bills in his hand. Cole stood to the side, clearly relishing the drama. No refs, no rounds, Trevor said. Just you and me until one of us taps or drops. Leonard rolled his neck slowly. Let's get this over with. Trevor moved first, fast for his size, throwing a heavy right hook. Leonard slipped it, his counter a sharp jab to the ribs. Trevor grunted, but came back with a low kick that Leonard checked effortlessly. The sound of fists meeting forearms and shins filled the air. Trevor was powerful, but Leonard's movements were efficient, controlled. Every dodge, every block, every counter was calculated. Cole called out from the side, half taunting, half cheering. Come on, Price, show us that Stonefist magic. Trevor lunged again, overcommitting. Leonard stepped inside the strike, hooked his opponent's arm, and twisted, dropping Trevor to one knee. "Yield," Leonard said quietly. Trevor snarled and tried to stand. Leonard's grip tightened, and with one final motion, he swept Trevor's leg, sending him flat to the pavement. The fight was over in seconds. Trevor lay there, breathing hard, then let out a rough laugh. "Guess you still got it." He shoved the roll of bills toward Leonard. But Leonard shook his head. "Keep it. Spend it on something worth more than a fight." Trevor's eyes searched Leonard's for a moment. Then he pushed himself up and walked off into the darkness. Emily stepped forward. "You didn't have to do that." Leonard looked at her, his expression unreadable. "I did. Because men like him, and sometimes men like Cole, need to be reminded that fighting without purpose is just violence." Behind them, Cole's smirk faltered just enough to reveal something else underneath, unease. Because for the first time, he realized Leonard Price might be more than a threat to his pride. He might be a threat to his entire way of running the studio. The next few days were strange. Word of Leonard Price's quiet but decisive victory over Trevor Kane spread through the studio like wildfire. No one had filmed it. Cole had made sure of that, but the story grew in the retelling. Some students swore Leonard had dropped Trevor in one punch. Others claimed he dodged 20 strikes in a row before ending the fight with a single sweep. Leonard didn't correct them. He kept mopping floors, fixing the squeaky hinge on the storage closet, replacing the tape on worn mats. But when he passed through the training area, conversations would falter, and eyes would follow him. Cole, however, was a different story. He tried to pretend nothing had changed, but his voice lacked its old swagger when Leonard was nearby. During classes, he threw fewer sarcastic jabs at the janitor and seemed cautious. On Friday night, Leonard was about to lock up when Emily approached him. "You should teach them," she said. "Teach who?" "The students. You could do real classes here, advanced stuff. Things Cole doesn't know." Leonard shook his head. "That's not my place." Emily crossed her arms. "You know what's funny? You say you're not a teacher. But they already learn from you. Every little tip you give, every time you show someone how to stand or breathe, people remember." He didn't answer. That weekend, the studio hosted a regional sparring showcase. Cole had organized it to attract new members, inviting students from nearby gyms to demonstrate their skills. The mats were surrounded by folding chairs, and the place was packed with spectators. During the third match, one of Cole's intermediate students, Marcus, got paired against a visiting fighter who was clearly more advanced. Within 30 seconds, Marcus was on the defensive, taking hit after hit. "Hands up, move your feet," Cole barked from the sidelines. But his words were frantic, mismatched with the rhythm of the fight. Leonard, watching from the corner, saw the flaw immediately. Marcus was backing straight up instead of angling away, giving his opponent the perfect lane to press forward. Emily glanced at Leonard, almost willing him to step in. Finally, Leonard called out, voice steady but carrying across the mat, "Marcus, pivot left. Now, lead with your jab. Don't chase the power." Marcus obeyed without hesitation. The change was immediate. He sidestepped the next flurry, jabbed to create distance, and began to turn the tide. The crowd noticed. Even the visiting fighter looked surprised. By the end of the round, Marcus was still standing and smiling. After the match, Cole pulled Leonard aside. His tone was clipped, but there was something else in his eyes now. Calculation. "You've got experience," Cole said. "More than I thought." Leonard just looked at him. "You always knew I had experience. You just didn't care until it helped you." Cole's jaw worked, but he didn't argue. The showcase ended with polite applause and new sign-ups for the studio. But that night, long after the crowd left, Cole stayed behind in the quiet gym, staring at the mats. When Leonard came in to clean, Cole spoke without looking at him. "I was wrong," Cole said. "About you. About a lot of things." Leonard paused. Cole took a breath. "If you're willing, I'd like you to run an advanced training block here. Not just technique, discipline, fight strategy, all of it. You'd have full control. I'll even put your name on it." Leonard studied him for a long moment. "What's the catch?" "No catch. Just help me make this place better than it's been." For the first time since they'd met, Cole's tone didn't carry a trace of mockery. Leonard gave a small nod. "All right, But we do it my way. No theatrics, no humiliation games. We train for respect, not ego. Deal, Cole said quietly. 3 months later, the transformation was undeniable. The studio had grown, not just in numbers, but in atmosphere. Students drilled with purpose. Sparring was intense but respectful. Even Cole's teaching style had changed. He pushed hard but no longer tried to break spirits for the sake of a laugh. Leonard's advanced classes became the most sought-after sessions of the week. Word spread beyond the city, drawing fighters and hobbyists alike. People came to learn not just how to win fights, but how to understand them. One evening, as Leonard locked up after class, Emily caught up to him. "Feels different now, doesn't it?" Leonard smiled faintly. "It does." She tilted her head. "Think you'll ever tell them everything? About who you were?" Leonard glanced back at the darkened studio. "Maybe one day. For now, it's enough that they know who I am now." And with that, he stepped into the night, still the quiet man with the mop, but also the one who had changed a gym not with his fists alone, but with the respect he demanded and the example he set. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, and subscribe to Tellinight. At Tellinight, stories remind us that healing begins with hope, and even the gentlest kindness can rewrite a destiny. Don't forget to tap the bell so you never miss a story that could brighten your day or transform your perspective. Until our next story, keep your heart open and your spirit brave.